When people think of the season of Lent, they think invariably of a time of fasting. And rightly so. We have our 2 days of fasting, Ash Wednesday and Good Friday. We have the days of abstinence, in which for the most part we fast from meat, but it's more of a time of abstinence than fasting. We have the individual penances that we do, in which we give up something for the season of Lent, a kind of personal fast to maintain during these days of discipline, penance, and prayer. It can be often difficult, especially if we've given up something truly of substance that's important to us. Might even be a little inconvenient. And I have run into people on occasion who have told me, well, they're not giving up something for Lent, they're doing something extra. But when you think about it, charity really doesn't have much meaning without personal sacrifice. Others might even tell me, well, I'm not giving up something for the entire season of Lent, I'm giving up something different every day, which when you think of it, it doesn't really make much sense. It's not much of a sacrifice. I'm giving up chocolate today, but I know I'm going to take it back tomorrow when I give up something else. I'll give up coffee that day, which won't be that hard because it's only one day. I'll take it back the next day. We're called to give up something consistently, and it has been a practice throughout the Old Testament times. The prophets speak of it, and they ask the people to do it sincerely and substantially. Jesus speaks of it in the Gospels. The apostles preached it. The early fathers of the church maintained that practice among Christian people, and we continue it as part of the practices in the church today. And on this Friday following Ash Wednesday, as perhaps an appropriate time in these early days of Lent, Jesus himself addresses the question of fasting in the Gospel reading for the Mass. We hear the disciples of John approached Jesus and said, "Why do we and the Pharisees fast much, but your disciples do not fast?" Jesus answered them, "Can the wedding guests mourn as long as the bridegroom is with them? The days will come when the bridegroom is taken away from them, and then they will fast." So what Jesus does is provide us with a context in doing what we do. We just don't do these practices for their own sake. But during a time of Lent is an appropriate time for fasting and penance. It makes sense because he uses the comparison of a bridegroom during a wedding. We wouldn't mourn when the bridegroom is there. We perhaps prepare before the wedding celebration, and after the bridegroom leaves, there's kind of that lull after a celebration in which we are perhaps saddened that the celebration for the time being is over. It's the same thing with us during the season of Lent in comparison to Easter. It wouldn't make sense for us to engage in penance and fasting during Easter because it's a time of celebration. But we engage in penance and fasting and discipline during the season of Lent to prepare us for that time of resurrection and celebration. It's the same thing with our prayer. We have, for example, the Rosary, a very popular devotion for many people, many Catholics, and within the Rosary we have the various mysteries. Throughout the course of the ordinary time, throughout the course of the year, we pray a different set of mysteries on different days. But when you think about it, would we really pray the glorious mysteries during the season of Lent? It wouldn't make any sense, and the context wouldn't be appropriate. But rather, for many people, every day during Lent are prayed the sorrowful mysteries, just as every day during Advent would be prayed the joyful mysteries. And especially during the season of Easter, would it make any sense to pray the sorrowful mysteries during the time in which we're remembering resurrection? No, we would pray the glorious mysteries. It's the same thing with the other practices that we engage in. Lent is a time of discipline and penance, and yes, a time of fasting. Fasting with the community in the 2 days of fasting and the days of abstinence, and individually in our observances that we have engaged in, the commitments that we have made of giving something up for the season of Lent. Not to make it palatable or easy, but to make it truly substantial and enter into it sincerely in such a way that is a challenge for us. And when we experience that challenge and that temptation as a result of what we've given up, we don't give in and make excuses or find loopholes, but rather we turn to God in prayer. And a time of temptation is transformed into a time in which we grow closer to God in prayer as we ask God for that strength to endure. And so let this be a time in which we not only engage in these practices, but that we know why, and we know the context in which we're engaging in them. Because when we know why we're doing things, it will give meaning to what we do and influence when we do it.